Indeed, the Internet of Things, or in short, we call it IoT, has been a buzzword in recent years. Actually, it's more than a buzzword. It's now become a reality. But why is it so important? If I can just offer you with these figures, I think everyone would be impressed that we're talking about by 2020. There are a lot of statistics flowing around, but I just pick some of these to share. 4 billion people connected, $4 trillion revenue opportunity, 25 million apps, 25 billion sort of embedded smart objects, and 50 trillion gigabyte data. Just by looking at this, you will see how Internet of Things, the IoT, would impact our business as well as our daily life. As I mentioned to Joe and other panelists this morning, it's very interesting that why GS1 is involved in this IoT. In fact, our involvement with IoT has dated back as early as 1999, when some of our global members, such as Walmart, P&G, et cetera, we supported MIT's Auto ID Lab to research in the field of networked radio frequency identification and emerging sensing technologies. That's how we started a long time ago. And the reason of doing that kind of research is that some of you may know that RFID is not a new technology. It has already been used 40 years ago during more than 40 years ago, I would say, during Second World War, but has never been a standard for it, and it has always been regarded as very expensive. And at that time, 1999, Internet just emerged. And at that time, GS1 is a global not-for-profit supply chain standards organization, has already been quite successful in applying barcode on most of the consumer products. So MIT talked to some of our global members to see how we can integrate the Internet, a low-cost RFID tag, as well to make the barcode smarter. That's how we come together for this kind of a research. And a few years later, by 2003, then we actually did the research. Research would never finish, but by then we come up to this quotation to form EPC Global in 2003. And MIT would then, the Auto ID Lab then extend into 5 other research labs all over other countries in Australia, China, Sweden, UK, etc. Now, the formation of the EPC Global, which is under the auspices of GS1, served the purpose of deploying a global standard that will capture the Internet of Things. Why? Because it consists of a unique code. We call it EPC. It is much more than the barcode number. It is a little bit like in the IP address that can uniquely identify an object, which can then embed in an RFID tag. So one is the coding structure. The second standard would be the standard for the RFID chipset, including the radio frequency range, including how to read and decode the RFID chip in order to make it low cost. Our vision at that time is talking about 5 cents US dollar for the RFID chip to make it really, really affordable. And then the third, the very big important part of it, is to leverage on the Internet protocol to develop this track and trace of visibility network standard so that we'll be able to share the data, the movement of the product across the supply chain. That's how we started, in 2003. Of course, things evolve today, and Internet of Things have become a very strategic agenda, not only for the B2B supply chain, but also in many of the government agenda. As you can see here, the Industry 4.0, the China 2025 for manufacturing, to upgrade the manufacturing with transformation as well as innovation, as well as the Internet Plus, that sets as an important impetus to the e-commerce development, et cetera, et cetera. So I just hope that this very one slide, I try to summarize a bit of the history of it. Now, I have no intention to go into details of it, but just to say that the Internet of Things, we're talking about 6 kind of building blocks for this IoT. security, sensing, connectivity, processing, energy saving, as well as the smart object traceability. But in my following presentation, I will focus on the sensor, particularly on the RFID, but sometimes we will also regard the barcode as a data capture, although it's not as smart as the RFID, as well as the traceability. Why I concentrate on this? Because it gives us real business benefits. Now, we have to be mindful that technologies always evolve, but to get the industry adopt it, we must focus on the business case and the value. And this is the gist of my presentation this morning, to share with you some of the cases. This is just to give you an example of how this smart object and this smart object traceability and the sensor could help. A very simple example, I think for many of you must have been hiring sort of a bicycle. I think Hong Kong is going to look into this as well. But let's imagine, if each bicycle has a unique ID which is embedded into RFID tag, and then we'll be able to track the movement of the bicycle through the traceability gateway from one application, for example, the bike rental, to another application, the bike maintenance. These two applications are totally different, but we will be able to use the same ID, the same sensor, as well as a traceability gateway to connect them. And what to do with the consumer? The consumer, because it can then link to the mobile app. So the consumer can be through the mobile app to check the availability of the bike and be able to rent and to pick it up at the preferred location. I picked this example is because it's to our daily life. It's easier to understand. But it also sets the scene that in the following example from the business applications, most of the applications, in my experience on IoT, surrounds on these three areas. The smart device that connects to the consumer, in most of the cases smartphone. The ID, very important, that can be embedded in either an RFID chip or a QR code, a barcode, etc., to identify the object, as well as a traceability gateway that can track and trace the movement of that object. Now, you may ask that, is this RFID or this IoT, is it very far away? No, in Hong Kong. I think one of the speakers would say, Octopus itself is already, I will let Sunny to elaborate. The 30 million transaction. I hope this figure is correct, Sunny. On the other hand, for those of you, many of you are visitors from overseas. When you leave Hong Kong, check your luggage. There will be a luggage tag for every single piece of luggage going out of Hong Kong. We're talking about 110,000 outgoing baggage, and each of them, including transit baggage, is embedded our EPC RFID Gen 2 tag in it. You check the luggage. And why? It gives the efficiency of handling the baggage by the Hong Kong Airport Authority. And interesting, for some of you who may want to visit Wong Tai Sin Temple, the Wong Tai Sin Temple, when you do the worshipping, there's this fortune-telling stick. And even this very lively, this stick is embedded with the RFID chip. I won't go into detail why they do it. They actually won one of our awards many years ago. The reason of doing it is to increase the efficiency of sorting out the sticks for the 3 million visitors of Wong Tai Sin Temple every year. Same as for the public library. There are 6 public libraries in Hong Kong who use the RFID to enable 24-hour drop book service. So as I said, I would like to focus on the business side of the IoT opportunity, particularly the 2 areas: how to build consumer trust to the brand, as well as the big data analytics. And I will use 3 cases to illustrate this consumer trust. Why, this consumer trust is important? As a consumer, we're all very concerned, from food safety to the authentication of a product, isn't it? Whenever we buy a product, before we eat the product, we want to know, where is this product made of? Where is it coming from? We're very concerned. How do we know? Can we just look at the product package, or is there a better way for us to know the information right at the origin? So these three are live example use cases at the moment. First, Mengyu. This is a leading China leading dairy product. For each of their milk bottle, they assign a unique ID, which is then embedded in the QR code during the production process. And it's linked to our traceability gateway, so that when the consumer uses the mobile app to scan the QR code, the consumer will be able to know where this particular bottle of milk comes from, which production line, which production plant, etc., etc. A little bit like the bike example I used early on. Similarly, in Metro is a global leading retailer, and they have to support sustainability. In EU, they have this sustainability law that the seafood coming into EU must comply with the catchment must come from sustainable water. So how they do it? Again, they have asked the suppliers, even those in Asia, because we are helping them on the training and on the rollout, that to provide a unique ID on the fish that they're embedded in the QR code. And then again, the information is loaded into the traceability gateway to be able to monitor the movement of the fish from catchment to distribution to retail. And then with the mobile app, consumer will be able to scan and know that this particular fish comes from sustainable seawater. Back in Hong Kong, this is very innovative. This is a Hong Kong pearl nucleus company. The nucleus for women, I didn't wear pearl today, but for pearl, it's cultivated from a nucleus inside the pearl. You put the nucleus into the shell, put it into the water, and then you harvest it, and etc., etc. This Hong Kong-based pearl nucleus company is very innovative because pearl, unlike diamond, how do you know a South Sea pearl, it is a South Sea pearl that worth, an Australian South Sea pearl, which worth much more expensive than, any other country of origin. So they put this RFID chip in the nucleus and let it, sit inside the shell, down inside the water. Technology today is able to do that. Now that RFID chip and the unique ID inside the nucleus becomes the ID of the pearl that tracks the movement or the life cycle of the pearl all the way from pearl farm harvest to distribution to retail. And the consumer, this is the next step. This is the next step that they're going to do because we're working with them to expand this into Australia. For example, then real pearl, there could be a QR code tag. They will put the certificate to authenticate the authenticity of this pearl. But at the same time, the consumer can use the mobile app to scan the QR code on the tag, be able to know the authenticity, the origin, etc. of this particular pearl. Now, going back to another big opportunity, apart from food safety, consumer protection, authenticity, the big opportunity comes from big data analytics. For those of you, you may have come across, if you visit Macy's, Zara, Fifth Avenue, etc. Many of the global retailers today, particularly those who are working on the apparel and footwear, they're already using RFID chip on each of the piece item. Okay? Next time you go to 6th Avenue, go to the shoes floor. I checked that already. For a pair of shoes, one piece of it has the RFID chip embedded into the label. Now, why they do that? Originally, they do, and for example, Zara, they're rolling it out to more than 1,000 stores worldwide. Why they do it in the beginning is really for inventory accuracy. Because once you put the RFID, the inventory count can increase from 200 items to 20,000 items per hour. Imagine. And this inventory accuracy also increased from 65% to 95%. Now, why they are able to, and why is it important? Is because this inventory accuracy is very fundamental to today's omni-channel retailing. Omni-channel meaning that you have to have the speed, you have the accuracy, and you need to replenish the items, probably from the nearby stores. So all these major retailers have been using this inventory accuracy. to support the omni-channel strategy as well as the operation efficiency. Nonetheless, the big opportunity comes not only from operation efficiency, it's also the big data insights. And the research, of course, this is very strategic, and not too many companies are willing to share the in-depth details, because but they would be utilizing this big data insights. And you can see that, they find these big data insights were beneficial across the operation, from merchandising, marketing, operations, supply chain, e-commerce, etc., etc. And in Hong Kong, it is not too remote from Hong Kong, because in Hong Kong, a leading jewelry chain retailer called Zhou Daifo, they are using it for big data analytics. They put RFID tag on each of the jewelry item. Right now, they have about 80 stores in Hong Kong. They have already rolled out, I think, some 20, 30, and intend to roll the rest of it, by next year. And they have 2,000 stores in China, which they intend to do all this. Why they want to do this? They put the RFID on the item, and they use the smart tray, RFID-enabled smart tray, to capture not only for the stock count, but also to be able to know the consumer behavior. That is, whether the consumer buy or not buy, once you touch it, once you try it on, they'll be able to know, to link the consumer profile with the product profile, the product information through the RFID. And that's where they capture the big data analytics. And in our casebook, we have documented the case, and this is to share that some of they're able, through this initiative, to be able to reduce the stock count by 50% and increase the sales conversion rate, be able to do more detailed analytics, etc. So in conclusion, I know the time is up. What I'm trying to say is opportunities are always around us. And IoT gives us the opportunity to realize these infinite possibilities and to make our business smarter as well as to make our lives better. Thank you.